What makes a reggae song truly awful? Is it a lazy beat, cringe-worthy lyrics, or a total lack of authenticity? The 16 songs on this list have it all. We are about to break down the bottom of the barrel, and the story behind number 1 is truly unbelievable. 1. Mr. Vegas, Heads High, Remix. In the world of dancehall, the song Heads High is an absolute anthem. The original version by Mr. Vegas is a classic, a raw, high-energy track that is guaranteed to get any party started. It has a gritty, authentic sound that defined the dancehall scene of the late 90s. The song was so popular that a remix was made to push it to an even bigger, more international audience. And in the process, they stripped out everything that made the original great. This is a classic case of a record label trying to make a song more pop-friendly and completely missing the point. The Heads High remix is a watered-down, overproduced mess. They took the raw, powerful rhythm of the original and smothered it with slick, clean production elements. The beat sounds weaker, the bass has less punch, and the whole track is polished until it has no edge left. For fans of the original, this remix was a huge disappointment. It felt like a sellout, a version made for people who did not understand or appreciate the raw power of real dancehall. It is the musical equivalent of taking a spicy, flavorful Jamaican dish and removing all the seasoning to make it palatable for tourists. The remix is not a terrible song on its own, but when you compare it to the legendary original, it feels like an unnecessary and lackluster copy that completely lost the plot. That remix was unnecessary. But our next song is a sequel that was even more pointless. 2. Vybz Kartel, IPAPC, Clark's Part 2.
Russia.
Vybz Kartel is one of the most important and controversial figures in modern dancehall. He is a lyrical genius who has had a massive influence on the genre. In 2010, he released the song Clark's, an ode to the famous British shoe brand that has been a staple of Jamaican style for decades. The song was a monster hit. It was clever, catchy, and an authentic celebration of a piece of Jamaican culture. It was so successful that a sequel was inevitable, and that sequel was a huge letdown. Clark's Part 2, also known as Clark's Again, is one of the laziest follow-ups in music history. The first song worked because it was fresh and original. This sequel is just a lazy repeat. Kartel basically uses the same formula, with less flair and less creativity. The lyrics feel uninspired, like he is just trying to find new ways to talk about the same shoes. The energy and excitement of the first track are completely gone. Fans who love the original were quick to call this one out as a simple cash grab. It felt like the record label wanted to squeeze a little more money out of the hit, so they rushed out a sequel without any new ideas. It is a perfect example of a song that should have never been made. It tarnishes the legacy of a classic track and shows that even a brilliant artist like Vybz Kartel is capable of making something completely pointless. A lazy sequel is one thing, but what about a remix from another dancehall king that completely missed the mark? 3. Beenie Man, Dude, Remix. Beenie Man is another certified king of dancehall, an artist with a huge list of classic hits. His song Dude was a major crossover success, a track that blended dancehall with a smooth R&B flavor. The original version had a great balance, keeping its Jamaican roots while still being accessible to a wider audience. But then came the remix, and that balance was completely thrown out the window in favor of pure pop. The Dude remix, much like the Mr. Vegas track we already talked about, suffers from a desperate need to be a commercial hit. The producers sacrificed the song's reggae and dancehall roots for a slick, pop-heavy sound. The rhythm was made smoother, the bass was turned down, and the whole thing was polished to sound like every other R&B pop song on the radio at the time. The raw energy and swagger of Beenie Man's performance feels out of place on such a clean track. For dancehall purists, this remix was a prime example of an artist watering down their sound for commercial appeal. It lost the edge and authenticity that made Beenie Man a star in the first place. While the remix did help the song get more radio play in America, it did so at the cost of its own identity. It is a forgettable, generic pop song that happens to feature a dancehall legend, and it stands as a warning of what can happen when you chase trends instead of staying true to your roots. That song chased pop trends. Our next artist just chased a cheap laugh, and the result was awful. 4. Shinehead, IMT, Jamaican in New York.
Yo! Oi man! Yo!
In the early 90s, the musician Sting had a massive hit with Englishmen in New York. It was a cool, jazzy pop song about feeling like an outsider. A few years later, the dancehall artist Shinehead decided to create a parody called Jamaican in New York. On paper, it sounds like a funny idea. In reality, it is one of the laziest and most annoying parodies ever recorded, and it barely qualifies as a new song. The biggest problem is that Shinehead just took the original Sting song and sang his own, much less interesting lyrics over it. He did not create a new rhythm or a new melody. He just hijacked a famous song. The joke is supposed to be the contrast between Sting's sophisticated life and Shinehead's experiences with the cold weather and the strange food in New York. But the joke gets old in about 30 seconds. His vocal delivery is more of a shout than a song, and the lyrics are not very clever. It feels like a cheap knockoff, a quick and easy way to get attention by riding on the coattails of a much better song. It became a minor hit, but only because people recognized the famous tune. Today, it sounds incredibly dated and silly. It is a novelty track that has not aged well at all, feeling more like a bad karaoke performance than a real piece of music. It is a classic example of a good idea executed in the laziest way possible. That parody was lazy, but what about a song that was meant to be sweet and ended up being painfully cheesy? 5. C.J. Lewis, Sweets for My Sweet. Let's take a trip back to the golden age of 90s reggae pop. The British artist C.J. Lewis took a sweet, innocent pop song from the 60s called Sweets for My Sweet and gave it the full 90s treatment. This meant a bouncy, upbeat reggae beat, a rap verse thrown in the middle, and a whole lot of cheesy production. The song was a huge hit in Europe, but it makes this list for being almost painfully generic and forgettable. This song sounds like it was created by a machine designed to make the most average reggae pop song imaginable. Every single part of it is predictable. The beat is a simple, looping rhythm that never changes or evolves. The singing is okay, but has no personality or emotion. And of course, there is the rap verse, which feels clumsy and completely tacked on, as if the producers remembered at the last minute that every pop song in the 90s needed a rap break. There is not a single spark of originality or excitement in this track. It is the definition of musical wallpaper. You could listen to the entire song and not remember a single thing about it 2 minutes later. It represents a time when the music industry saw reggae not as a powerful art form, but as a trendy flavor that could be added to anything to sell more records. This song is so sugary and soulless that it feels completely empty. This song was too sugary. Our next entry comes from a comedian who delivered something that was just in bad taste. 6. Eddie Murphy, Wash Your Butt. Eddie Murphy, one of the greatest comedians of all time, decided to record a reggae album in the 1990s. It was a bizarre career move that produced this truly unbelievable song. The track is a parody of a popular dancehall style, but the humor is so childish and strange that it is hard to believe it was made by a grown man, let alone a comedy genius. The entire song is a public service announcement about personal hygiene. That is correct. For 3 painful minutes, Eddie Murphy, using a very fake-sounding Jamaican accent, lectures the listener about the importance of staying clean. He sings over a generic, uninspired reggae beat. The lyrics are incredibly blunt and not the least bit funny. He goes into details about washing that nobody would ever want to hear described in a song. The whole thing feels like a bad joke that a 10-year-old would write. It is not clever or shocking, it is just plain dumb. What makes it even more baffling is that he seems to be taking the music part of it seriously. The production is not terrible, and he is really trying to sound like a legitimate dancehall artist. But the subject matter is so ridiculous that it becomes one of the most cringe-worthy celebrity music projects ever. Why he thought this was a good idea is a mystery for the ages. It is a permanent stain on an otherwise legendary career and a truly awful piece of music. This song was just plain dumb. The next track tried to be tough and cool, but ended up as a total cliché. 7. Patra, Worker Man. In the 1990s, a female dancehall artist named Patra made a big splash on the international scene. She was marketed as a tough, powerful, and confident woman, a queen of the dancehall. Her biggest hit was a song called Worker Man. The song is all about her search for a strong, hard-working man who can meet her high standards. On the surface, it is a fine topic for a song. But the way it was done was so over the top and full of cliches that it became almost a parody of itself. The beat is a heavy, generic dancehall rhythm that sounds exactly like hundreds of other songs from that time. Patra's vocal delivery is not really singing. It is more of a breathy, repetitive chant that goes on and on. The lyrics are just a shallow checklist of what she wants in a man. He has to be strong, he has to work hard, and he has to be good in the bedroom. The song comes across as less empowering and more like a list of demands. The music video made it even worse. It featured Patra surrounded by muscular, sweaty men working on a construction site. It was so obvious and on the nose that it was almost funny. The song and the video felt like they were trying way too hard to be edgy and cool. Instead of coming across as a powerful anthem for strong women, it just sounded like a repetitive and unimaginative piece of pop music that was using dancehall as a gimmick. That song relied on stereotypes. Our next one is a modern hit that relies on being incredibly annoying. 8. Magic, Rude.
Saturday morning jumped out.
Let's jump forward to our own decade for a song that annoyed millions of people all over the world. The Canadian band Magic released their song Rude in 2014, and it was a massive, unavoidable hit. The song tells the simple story of a young man asking a father for permission to marry his daughter. The father says no, so the singer decides he will just marry her anyway. The chorus, with its whiny question, "Why you gotta be so rude?" got stuck in everyone's head for an entire summer. The problem with this song is twofold. First, the music is painfully bland. It is a super lightweight, pop-friendly version of reggae that feels completely plastic and manufactured. It has a gentle guitar strum and a laid-back beat, but there is absolutely no soul, passion, or grit to it. It is the kind of safe, inoffensive music you would expect to hear in a commercial for a family-friendly resort. But the real issue is the lyrics. The singer comes across as a spoiled, entitled brat. He is not heartbroken or determined. He is just annoyed that he did not get his way. Instead of trying to win the father over or prove his worth, he just throws a little tantrum and calls the man rude. The song was so overplayed and its chorus was so repetitive that it drove people crazy. It is a perfect example of modern pop stealing the sound of reggae but taking none of its heart. That song was annoying. But this next one, also from the 90s, took annoying to a whole new level. 9. Apache Indian, Boom Shack Alack. The title of this song should tell you everything you need to know about it. Boom Shack Alack, by the British artist Apache Indian, is a song that seems to have been scientifically engineered in a lab to be as goofy as humanly possible. It was a big hit in 1993, and it combines elements of reggae, dancehall, and even a bit of bhangra, a type of music from India. The result is a chaotic, high-energy mess that is almost impossible to listen to today without cringing. The beat is a frantic, bouncy rhythm that sounds like a circus on fast forward. Over this chaotic music, Apache Indian delivers his lyrics in a rapid-fire style that is more shouting than toasting. And what are those lyrics about? It is honestly hard to tell. Most of the song is just him repeating nonsense phrases and ad-libs, including the title itself. It feels like he is just making up silly words as he goes along, with no real message or story. This is the very definition of a novelty song. It was probably fun for about 5 minutes back then because it sounded so weird and different from everything else, but it has absolutely no lasting appeal. It is so deeply rooted in the sound and style of the early 90s that it now sounds incredibly dated. It is a loud, silly, and ultimately pointless piece of music that adds nothing of value to the world of reggae. Silly and pointless describes that song well, but the next song on our list is just plain baffling. 10. Boris Gardner, I Want to Wake Up With You. Sometimes a song becomes a massive hit, and decades later, nobody can really explain how it happened. That is definitely the case with Boris Gardner's #1 hit from 1986, I Want to Wake Up With You. This is without a doubt one of the sleepiest, most boring reggae songs ever recorded. It is a slow, syrupy ballad that sounds like it is about to fall asleep at any moment, and it will probably take you with it. The music is incredibly simple and uninspired. It is just a slow, plodding drum machine beat, a basic bass line that repeats over and over, and some very cheesy-sounding keyboards that sound like they came from a toy. The whole thing sounds like a demo track that an artist records as a rough idea but was never supposed to be the final version. Over this snooze fest of a track, Boris Gardner sings in a gentle, almost whispered voice. The lyrics are a simple declaration of love, but there is absolutely no passion or emotion in his delivery at all. He sounds completely bored, like he is reading a grocery list instead of singing a love song. How this incredibly dull song managed to climb all the way to #1 in the UK is one of pop music's greatest mysteries. It is a black hole of excitement, a truly forgettable hit. That song was a mystery. Our next track is also a mystery. Mainly, why does it even exist? 11. Christofari, Mi Hosanna. Reggae music has very deep spiritual roots, most famously in the Rastafarian faith. The music has always been a vehicle for messages of faith, hope, and social justice. So, what happens when you take the powerful sounds of reggae and apply them to a completely different religion? You get Christian reggae, a subgenre that has always been a bit awkward and controversial. One of the most famous Christian reggae bands is Christofari, and their song Hosanna shows why many people find this combination so strange. The song takes the formal, traditional lyrics of a Christian worship song and sets them to a reggae beat. Musically, the band is competent, they can play their instruments, and the groove is okay. But the combination of the sunny, upbeat reggae sound with the very serious and formal language of a church hymn is incredibly jarring. The two things just do not fit together. To make matters worse, the lead singer delivers the lyrics with a forced Jamaican accent that feels completely inauthentic and disrespectful. For many reggae purists, this kind of music feels like cultural appropriation. They see it as a group taking the style and sound of a culture without understanding or respecting its deep origins. For other listeners, it just sounds goofy. The attempt to make traditional worship music seem cool by adding a reggae beat comes across as cringe-worthy and a little desperate. This band copied a style. Our next song took a chaotic approach that was just a mess. 12. Elephant Man, Juk Gal Head Gone version.
It's the Elephant Man, that's me, and the twister with another hit song.
Elephant Man is known as the energy god of dancehall for a reason. His music and his live performances are full of wild, chaotic energy. When he gets it right, he can create some of the most exciting party anthems in the genre. But when he gets it wrong, that same energy can turn into a cluttered, annoying mess. The Head Gone version of his song Juk Gal is a perfect example of his style going completely off the rails. This track is pure chaos from start to finish. The production is cluttered, with too many sounds and effects all competing for attention. The rhythm is fast and frantic, but it is buried under a mountain of loud, obnoxious sound effects. It is hard to find a groove because the song is constantly changing and throwing new noises at you. It is less of a song and more of a sonic assault. Elephant Man's lyrics are repetitive, and his delivery is more about shouting random phrases than creating a coherent flow. The song tries to be the ultimate party track, a song that makes you lose your mind on the dance floor, but instead, it just ends up being irritating and unfocused. It is the sound of an artist throwing every single idea at the wall to see what sticks, and in the end, nothing does. It is all energy and no direction, a chaotic mess that is more likely to give you a headache than make you want to dance. That song was a chaotic mess. Our next one was just a slick, soulless product. 13. Maxi Priest, H.O., Close to You. In the early 90s, a new sound began to take over the R&B charts. It was a fusion of smooth, American-style R&B with the rhythms of reggae and dancehall. The British singer Maxi Priest was one of the biggest stars of this movement, which was sometimes called reggae fusion. His song, Close to You, was a massive #1 hit. The problem is, it is a perfect example of a song that tries to be two things at once and ends up failing at both. The song has a reggae-style beat, but it is a slick, programmed drum machine beat with no swing or soul. The smooth synthesizers and clean production are pure late 80s R&B. Maxi Priest sings in a soft, gentle voice that has none of the power of a great soul singer or the raw energy of a true reggae artist. The entire song just floats along in a sea of pleasant blandness. It is incredibly safe and inoffensive. For fans of R&B, it lacked the emotional punch and powerful vocals of a real soul ballad. For fans of reggae, it was a complete sellout. It felt like a cheap attempt to cash in on the popularity of reggae by watering it down and making it as commercial as possible. The song created a formula that many other artists would copy, leading to a wave of forgettable R&B reggae hybrids. It is the sound of two great genres being mixed together to create something much less than the sum of its parts. That song was bland. The next one is so infamous for being bad that it has become a legend of pop culture failure. 14. Ras Nu Moody, Can't Do Without Her Love. We have finally arrived at the #1 spot, the bottom of the barrel. This one is not a funny gimmick or a silly celebrity project. It is a song that tries to be a serious, emotional reggae track and fails on every single level. The song is Can't Do Without Her Love by an obscure artist named Ras Nu Moody. This track is a masterclass in how to do lovers rock, a romantic style of reggae, completely wrong. The problems start with the production. The song is incredibly thin and weak sounding. The drum machine is tinny. The bass is barely there, and the keyboards sound cheap and out of tune. It sounds like it was recorded in a basement on a broken tape recorder. It has none of the warmth, depth, or groove that is essential for a good reggae song. The music is bland, lifeless, and completely forgettable, but the real disaster is the vocals. Ras Nu Moody sings in a high-pitched, whiny voice that is completely off-key for most of the song. He delivers the lyrics with an overly emotional, almost crying delivery that is supposed to sound passionate, but just comes across as painful and embarrassing to listen to. Critics have mocked it for being one of the most vocally challenged performances ever released. It is a train wreck from start to finish, a song so lacking in talent and soul that it stands as the perfect example of truly bad reggae. It is, without a doubt, the worst of the worst.